And what we're going to work with today concerning colonization, if you're a white person, a white settler in particular, whose ancestors came to North America at some point, then as we're approaching this, it's really helpful to try to stay out of shame. Notice it if it comes up, but the point of this exploration today is to really look into what happened to break our connection with Mother Earth. Because Indigenous people have a relationship with the environment that most or many white people don't have. And so I'm really interested in exploring how has that happened with a view to how can we work with that. That's our focus today. This is from Michael Singer. Many of you are familiar with Michael Singer through The Untethered Soul. In his approach, evolution is impersonal. It's not benevolent or malevolent. It's just evolution. And one of the reasons that we struggle so much is that we try to make it personal when it's not. That's his view. And I can certainly see how we cause a lot of suffering through attachment, but that's a whole other kind of thing. I wanted to bring that in as part of the way that many of us are working with our relationship with evolution and the universe. And then we have Dr. Seligman. Her book, Flourishing Kin, is a resource for what we're doing over the next several weeks. And she says, what can transform the basic nature of the acorn into the spiritual awareness of the grove? It's its metamorphosis, its evolution from self-interest to collective flourishing. So that's what we're working with. So Michael Singer has more of a collective neutrality, and Dr. Seligman has more of a collective flourishing through our relationship. When we look at colonization, for my personal history, my ancestors are primarily from Scotland with some England, Wales, and Ireland. The ones that I know about most clearly came to Nova Scotia from Scotland on the first sailing of the Hector in 1773. And they were fleeing the Highland clearances. The British were colonizing Scotland and clearing out all the clans. And so there was a real good reason for people to leave. Just as we look at immigration now, there are always reasons why people leave their homeland. Some of them are adventure, but a lot of them are because there's something in crisis. So there's this feeling of there's this fight for survival, and we want to use anything we can to make sure that we survive. Turtle Island is an Indigenous term for North America. So if I'm using that, it means what we're now knowing as North America. So white settlers came and appropriated the land and prioritized survival, cutting down the trees. With the Industrial Revolution, there was a lot of pollution, factories spewing stuff into the air and into the water. Settler extractivism is one term that's used, and it's led to this large-scale environmental crisis that we're in right now. Indigenous communities, on the other hand, have consistently resisted these projects, advocating for land rights and environmental protection. That's something that is true overall around the world, as well as certainly in North America. So as we're getting into this now, this exploration of what contributed to this disconnection that many white people feel from the land. So in order to colonize the land, we had to have a certain way of thinking about it. So one thing that we did was justified that through the religion said there's nobody there. North America doesn't have anybody on it because they didn't consider people who were not Christian or who didn't have the kind of farming methods that were approved of in Europe. They didn't have the kind of governments that were recognized in Europe. They justified colonization with there's nobody living there. It's open for us to come. So in terms of the breach of the disconnection, I'm not living on the lands of my ancestors. My ancestors for millennia lived in Scotland and in the British Isles. And there was a relationship that they had with the land that they didn't have with the land that they came to. What we don't know and what we don't love, we don't take care of in the same way. It's a little easier to exploit something that feels like it's at a distance, something or someone. And that's one of the reasons that we dehumanize other people. It's to justify or to make it feel a little bit better in our hearts of what we're doing. So we lost that ancestral reverence. We lost our historical connection. I've read about when my family came over from Scotland, there was a lot of fear. Scotland had been largely deforested, so there wasn't a lot of big forest trees, and there was here in Nova Scotia. And so there was a lot of superstitions around the forest, but there's also forests are overwhelming. They're beautiful, and they're also filled with bears and cougars and wolves and things that could threaten their survival. We've lost that familiarity and the comfort of our homeland by moving here. And how can we develop a relationship when we see this new land as an enemy and something that has to be conquered? So, this I think is relevant to the relationship we have with our own body. We have to conquer our body, we have to conquer our nervous system. We have this adversarial relationship with ourselves and certainly with other people. Kinship and belonging, kin relationality, is an antidote to this othering and separateness. Like Michael Singer, it's not that neutral kind of we're all in the universe. It's more personal in terms of relationship. So, this is the path that she's exploring in this book, Flourishing Kin, Indigenous Wisdom for Collective Well Being. So, the environment of this collective well being, how we would even come to care about it, is respect for the environment, it's respect for each other. So, understanding the way things work, the natural patterns of chaos and order in life, things die. If we pollute the waters, it's going to cause cancer. This relationship that we have to integrate our personal experience within the ecosystem. But it's hard for us to do that when we felt so disconnected from that. So, with Indigenous people, there's this identity that's rooted in belonging and in relationship. So, this network of connections infused with reverence, wonder, accountability, and a feeling of sacred relationships. And we hear Indigenous people talk about 7 generations. So, 7 generations back, revering their ancestors, and 7 generations forward. What are my actions today? How are they going to impact my children, grandchildren going forward 7 generations? Seeing ourselves as connected in relationship and community, but also in our environment, brings this duty to protect our communities as well as our environment. So they're not as separate. The relationship is closer in. But let's just sit with this for a moment. Some of what I've just been saying, notice what came up for you around where do you fit in that? Are you someone whose ancestors are mostly white settlers? Does that term bother you? For me, it's just a description, but I know for some people they take offense of that. Are you Indigenous? Were your ancestors, did they come not from Europe during the kind of colonization of North America? Were your ancestors brought over as slaves? Wherever you're personally situated in this, you have a different experience of colonization. What is your experience? And what does that feel like in your body? Let's go into this exploration. What are some of the elements in this relationship with Mother Earth? As we're looking at why and how and all of that, that can be really helpful. And it's helpful to understand some of what is going on there. But let's also look into a practice of connection. So if you imagine that you're sitting on Mother Earth, so your bare feet might be touching the soil, or maybe you're lying down. We're going to do this practice as a visualization in part. Bring your awareness away from whatever thoughts are in your mind, whatever's going on in your body. Let's focus on that. But imagine that you're seated or sitting or touching Mother Earth somehow, skin to skin, so to speak. If you have shoes on right now in your real life here, in your visualization of this, maybe your feet are bare. We can remember what it feels like to have our feet on the earth. Also, notice the touch of air on your skin, the warmth of the sun, perhaps, the aromas and scent of flowers and plants. Let yourself use your senses to really come in. Maybe you're beside a small body of water, a creek or something, and you can hear the water, or an ocean or something like that. Maybe you can hear birds in the trees. Let yourself settle into this visualization. Relax with soft breaths. Let your body be nourished by your breath. Really soak in this feeling of being here. You look around in your mind's eye. Really enjoy the beauty of nature. Notice your breath. Notice your body. We were just doing this visualization of being in nature, what we're hearing, what we're smelling, the sounds. Become more aware now of the energy field of your body and of the earth. One way that we might access that is to be aware of the physical space that our body is in. We have physical sense perceptions. We have the breath that's moving in our body. And we also have energy and sensations in our body. They're in the same location, but they're not exactly physical. And there's also even a more subtle energy than that. The body is in a field of energy. Let's take a moment to explore that with our awareness, with our attention. My body is a field of energy. Allow your mind to be kind of still and just focus on feeling that subtle energy in and around you. And then sense the boundary between your body and the earth, the air, and then let that go and focus on the unity in the energy field. So we have a field of energy that is our body, and we are in a larger field of energy. Try not to think about it too much. Try to sense into that. And then become aware of the sensation and movement of breath in your body, going in and out, focusing on the whole, coming back to the actual experience in our body. So, this awareness of sensation and movement of breath, notice if it's your chest mostly moving, your stomach area. We can notice the sensation of air in the nose. And is this a well established relationship? Is it something that you are quite familiar with? Are you familiar with the patterns of when I'm holding my breath? I notice that there's some kind of fear or worry, certain kind of thoughts. What does your breath and the patterns and rhythms of your breath signal to your nervous system? And also notice that allowing your breath to be smoother, more continuous, allows our whole nervous system to soften a bit, to come down out of that hypervigilance or alarm. Just noticing that awareness of breath. And then moving to a different focus now, become aware of the sensation and movement of air around your body. And we're coming back into visualizing. What is your experience with strong movements of air and gentle movements of air? And we describe these very differently. We might have a sensation of being overheated, and we have a welcome breath of fresh air. The breath of fresh air could be a gentle breeze. It could be somebody telling the truth in a situation where everybody was kind of shut down. There's a lot of ways that that works. The energy of that. So notice your experience with welcome movements of air. Often those are more gentle. And you might notice your shoulders are starting to soften or your body's more relaxed. Take a deep breath and then bring in memories of strong movements of air. Cold, bitter north wind, a hurricane, out on the ocean, and here comes the wind and the waves are kicking up. We are often scared when there's strong movements of air. Let's take a moment to settle into that in the body. What are your memories of that, and how does your body feel when you're thinking about that? I know for myself, I have a dislike, I would say, of strong winds hammer against the house. The language we use indicates a lot of our experience with that. Notice that for another moment. Notice your breath. Notice how you feel in your body. There's a connection here with our memories and thoughts about this, with our nervous system, our feeling of fear or safety. So then let the wind die down. Come back into noticing your sense perceptions, your thoughts, and then let go of that. We're activating different experiences in our mind, our body, what we're aware of. Now focus on the unity in the energy field of your body and of Earth. So you might notice when you were visualizing earlier, there's this feeling or this sense of my feet on the earth. Or maybe you have a body memory of laying on the sand in the summer and it's just a perfect relaxation. It feels so lovely. Sand is warm, the sounds, the scent. Let go of the details of that now and just focus in again on the unity in the energy field itself, the energy field of our body and of the earth. And then include space. So the air that's around us, but also the sense of Earth is a planet in space. We have some visual of that probably in our mind. So without getting into thinking about it, this is kind of the tricky part of this. Let yourself be aware of that sense of the energy field that's me, of the earth, and of space. Let your awareness really expand outward for a moment. And then bring your awareness back now to your breath and your physical body. Notice the energy flow in your body, around your body. Come back into this more personal awareness of this now. You will sit with this for a couple of minutes, just aware of what your experience was during this visualization, this little practice. We started with that visual of our bare feet on the earth, of our breath, of strong movements and gentle movements of air. Focus we had, the impact of that on our body, on our energy, on our nervous system. Coming back to this larger awareness of myself connected in earth and space, and then back into the physical body. Let that come forward and just notice what was your experience with this, and what is your experience right now in this moment.